Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. My girl Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling and I are hosting the Merry Christmas and Holiday Fun collaboration. We're joined by lots of our talented friends, and we're going to be sharing some festive creations to kick off the holiday season. Please be sure to check out Dawn's channel as well as all of our talented friends on the playlist. There will be links for you in the description box. Today we're creating a retro ho-ho Santa. Let's get into it. For this project, I'm going to be using some Daz clay, but any clay will work. We're going to need a foam cone, it's about 7 inches tall, and a 2.3 inch ball. Got mine at the Dollar Tree, back when they still had them. We're also going to need some toothpicks, and we're going to need some acrylic paints and fiddly bits, which you'll see later. Since this cone is one of those smooth jobbies, I'm going to add some texture by dragging my wire tool over the surface. The texture is going to help the clay adhere to the foam. So I'm going to scrape vertically and then I'll do it again horizontally. This is only necessary if you have one of the smooth foam cones. If you have the crunchy kind, you can skip this part. I grabbed a big old handful of clay here and I'm going to condition it by kneading it. And this is going to distribute the moisture and make it more pliable. It should also help it from cracking while it's drying. We'll roll it out nice and flat. I'm going to wrap the cone with the clay, pressing on it to adhere it. I'll also cut off where it overlaps. I'm going to save that clay to fill in the gaps. It's looking pretty good, but we do have a wee gap down here at the bottom, so we're just going to add some clay in that space. And once I get it all covered, I'm going to roll it on the table to smooth it. I have here a jar lid, and I'm going to use this to cut a circle to cover the bottom of the cone. Just going to pop that on the bottom here. I dampened the clay with my brush right there at the seam, and I'm smoothing it with my fingers. I really just want to make sure that the bottom is nice and flat, so our Santa doesn't wobble. Now I'm going to come in and use that brush to lightly dampen the cone and smooth away any obvious bumps just by running my hands over the clay and again focusing on any bumps. I'm going to let that sit for a few minutes while I roll a thick cane of clay to create Santa's arms. I cut the cane in half lengthwise and I trim it to size. Yep, that looks like a good fit. I'm going to push a toothpick on either side of him where I want to anchor his arms. I'm just going to leave a very small bit sticking out, just the point really. I'll score the clay with my wire tool and I'll dampen it with my brush. This is going to help it stick to the other clay, you know what I'm saying? I'll place the arms over the toothpick, wrapping them around the front of his body and shaping as I go. I'm ever so slightly dampening the clay again, and I'm going to incorporate it with my pointy tool, pulling in a downward motion, just spreading the arm clay over the body clay. Then I'm going to smooth the clay with my ball tool and my fingers. And of course I'm going to do that to both arms. Good old Saint Nick is going to be holding a wreath, so I'm going to leave a small gap between his hands to accommodate. I'll use the jar lid again to create flat spots on the foam ball, top and bottom, just pressing down. This will allow his head to sit nicely on his body and his hat to sit on his head. I went ahead and rolled out more clay, this time to cover the ball. Right, so we're just going to drape that clay over top of the ball. You feel me? I'm going to press it to make sure that it's well adhered, and I'll cut away any excess. But again, we're going to hang on to that so that we can fill in the gaps. Just going to add this wee piece here, and I'm going to roll the ball around on the table to smooth the clay out. Right, so now we're going to push a toothpick into the center top of the cone to anchor his head. And then I'm going to center the head on the toothpick. We're going to need to fill the gap between his head and neck, so let's roll another cane of clay. I'll wrap it around that space. I'll use both my fingers and my ball tool to force that clay into the gap. Now let's incorporate it with our pointy tool, just pulling that clay from the neck down over the seam onto the body. This will be covered by his beard, but I want it to secure the two pieces together. So we're going to smooth it somewhat. Okay, let's make his hat. So we're just going to roll a cone shape, and I'm going to do that by basically rolling a cane of clay, but focusing more on one end to narrow it, and then we're going to flatten the bottom out by pressing it on the table, using our fingers to give it a good wide bottom. Another toothpick to anchor his hat to his head. And of course, we're going to incorporate the two pieces. I'm going to gently fold over the point of the hat, just ever so slightly there. That'll work. Now here I rolled out more clay, flattened it nice and thin, and I'm going to cut out his beard. I just eyeballed this. As you can see here, I'm using my pointy tool to just kind of cut out that curve. That's the area that, will go around his face. It's quite a generous beard, which is exactly what I want, so I'm going to set that aside for the time being. We need to beef up the area around his neck, both to reinforce the area for his beard, but also to serve as his fur collar, which will really only be visible from behind. But, it's serving a dual purpose. You feel me? So we're just going to roll another cane of clay, and we're going to get that on there, and we'll incorporate it just a wee smidge, again, really just to secure it. So you can see here, it's nice and thick. It's definitely going to be a good structure for the beard to lay across. So I'm going to score the area where the beard is going to go, and then we'll get the beard into place, smooth it a wee bit, incorporate it a wee bit. Hope everyone had a fabulous Halloween. My favorite day of the year. Wild how fast it came up on us, isn't it? It didn't creep, it ran right up to us. Can't believe we're at the end of the year already. I don't know. Time seems to be moving a lot quicker. Am I right? Grabbing another handy toothpick, I'm going to anchor his nose. So we're going to just push that into place, and we're going to roll a wee bit of clay into a ball, pop that onto the toothpick, and incorporate it. Once we get that sorted out, Santa will get a good night's rest. We'll see him when he's dry. So Santa has dried really nicely. There's no cracking whatsoever, and he's very smooth, so we're good to go. I'll give his hat and his coat 2 applications of Ceramcoat Watermelon, my favorite red. We're going to keep Santa very simple, in form and in color. I'll give his face 2 coats of Ceramcoat Tawny. And just as a heads up, I am letting each coat completely dry before I do anything else. So I was using my heat gun just to speed up the process. We'll base coat his beard and the back of his head with 2 coats of Ceramcoat White. I'm also going to give his hat a couple of white stripes, and I'm going to paint his mittens white too. Now we're going to go over those stripes and his mittens with some Ceramcoat Parsley. I love this green. It's very bright, very cheery. I want this to have a wee bit of a painterly look, so I'm going to leave some of the white peeking out around the edges. I don't know, I think it adds some real retro character. Now we're going to go over those stripes. Not going to worry if it's not perfect, since I really do want some of that white to peek out. I taped along his beard to mask it, and I'll use a dauber to tap on some Ceramcoat Sun-Kissed Coral to create his cheeks. So I'm going right next to his nose. I do like the Sun-Kissed Coral. I think it's almost red, but not quite. I really like it when I'm using red as a base coat. I think it's a really good differential from the watermelon, and it's going to give Santa nice rosy cheeks. With a fine detail brush, I'm going to add wee arched lines just above his cheeks with Raw Sienna. This is where I dot his eyes, so it's like a placement so I know where his eyes are going to go. And I'm going to dot his eyes on with Cermcoat Charcoal. I'm going to dot on his eyebrows with some white using this little stylus. It's like a mini ball tool. And I'm going in a little bit of an arch. I almost forgot to boop his nose with Sun-Kissed Coral, so we're going to do that. Boop. And then we're going to come in and dot his eyes, cheeks, and nose with a white highlight. Let's give him a happy wee smile. First with Raw Sienna, then we're going to go over it slightly askew with charcoal. The Raw Sienna, well, that's going to kind of serve as a shadow. And now we'll come in with the charcoal to darken it. Cute. Okay, gang, we're pulling out the flooding medium to add some shading. I'll prep my brush with the medium. The flooding medium here is this clear gel. Get a good healthy coat on there. And I'm going to scoop up some Raw Sienna on the corner of my brush, side loading. I stroke my brush onto the plate to blend the medium with the paint on the bristles. This gives me that gradient of color from dark to light, perfect for shading. I place the paint corner of my brush where I want the darkest shadow, here where his face meets his beard. And I'm going to float the shading all along the edge, right around the beard, and then where his hat meets his face. His beard and his hair will get a float of Ceramcoat Tropic Bay, and I load the brush the same way each time. For the beard, it's like we're almost just outlining it with the Tropic Bay. And you know the basic rule, just anywhere you think it might look good or where there might be a natural shadow. So that's what we're doing. Now the parsley stripes on his hat and of course his mittens, they're going to get floated with Ceramcoat Spring Green. I'm going to float along the bottom edge of the green stripes. I usually do both, but this time since the stripe is so narrow, we're just going to do the bottom. Now on the red of his hat and coat, I'm going to use Americana Cherry to float in a nice shade here. So we'll start on his hat, right there along the edge, and again, kind of like on the bottom of the red stripe. You see what I mean? Right along here. And of course, where his hat point tips over, we're going to want to shade in there too. I'll come in and shade where his arms meet his body, in that crease there. And I'm going to go on both sides of the arm. And I do add a little shading at the bottom of his coat too. Why not? I'll seal him by pouncing on a top coat of Deco Art multi-purpose sealer with a cosmetic sponge. This will give him a nice professional finished look. I did come back and add a white stripe down the front of his coat and around his cuffs. And now I'm going to embellish his hat and his coat with white pom-poms. I'm using fabric fix glue to attach them. And we'll attach this big pom-pom to the end of his hat. The pom-pom trim from the Dollar Tree will go around the bottom of his coat. We'll add his wee wreath to his hands. Again, I'm going to use some fabric glue. Pop that right into place. And I'm going to give him some green pom-poms down the center of his coat. And that just about does it. Shall we take a look at jolly old Saint Nick? I think he's quite a cheery fella. I love his bright colors and the simplicity of the design. I think he could very easily fit into a retro, modern, or traditional holiday decor theme. I also think that he is a very beginner-friendly project. What do you think? Let me know if this is something that you feel you could make. I think you could. I say, go for it. Jump in. Do it. You'll love it. I'm going to have all of my supplies in the description box for you. Okay, gang, that kicks off project number 1 for this year's Christmas. Please be sure to check out Dawn's channel as well as all the amazing creators on the playlist. You'll find links for both also in the description box. Show them some love. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time, up all night with Monica.